Story 1. People with huge personalities, with rare exceptions, they are usually also very abrasive and annoying to be around. As an extreme example, my dad worked with a guy who called himself the Gob. He always wanted to be the center of attention, and if he thought people weren't paying attention, he'd shout something at the top of his lungs to make sure he was. He thought this was endlessly funny. Nobody else did. Story 2. The one-upper. They will also boast about themselves. If someone else shares an interesting experience, the one-upper will interject and state that they had something similar but much more elaborate happen to them. They can't stand not being the center of attention. Story 3. They have to make everything about them. Someone's celebrating a promotion, they have got to talk about their job. Someone got in a car crash, they have got to talk about theirs. They may think they are relating, but it is really just a cry for attention. Story 4. People who claim they tell it like it is. Funny how their so-called no-nonsense attitude only ever seems to be targeted at those of weak social standing. More questionable is the fact they are often very quick to fly off the handle when the spotlight is pointed back at them. Story 5. Narcissistic. I work with one. I asked him once if he has ever been wrong, and he said straight-faced, "Once I thought I was wrong, but it turns out I was wrong," meaning he was wrong to think he was wrong. He is not a bad guy, he just can't see any further than his nose. Story 6. Literalists. The more time I spend with one, the worse they annoy me. There is such a thing as exaggeration, metaphor, simile, and various and sundry imaginative flights, and each doesn't need to be viewed with puzzlement, disdain, and immediate dissection. Story 7. The mirror. They don't have their own personality and try to mimic the people around them to fit in. I would rather hate you for being you than hate you because you aren't your true you. Story 8. Two-faced. Says and acts one way around some people, and then acts completely differently when those people aren't around. Makes me wonder who hurt them and why they don't have a consistent personality. Story 9. Judgy people who say stuff in front of the person they're judging actually stir up a rage in me when someone I'm with will speak negatively about someone in front of them. And people who think weirding or grossing you out is the funniest thing. Story 10. People that reflect their insecurity on others. People that have only read 4 books or so and think they are smart enough to teach you. Persons that have no empathy for others. People that hate small children, the ones that literally bully them. People that would do anything only to blend into some social groups and losing their true selves. Story 11. Those who lead their introduction by outright stating, "I have a dark sense of humor," can sometimes be challenging. I can appreciate dark humor, but you have to know your audience. Those stating it are almost always the kind of person to make some kind of sexist, racist, or homophobic joke within a few minutes of meeting people, then follow up with "it's just a joke," and think everybody's just being too sensitive for thinking they're an asshole. Story 12. People who can't own up to their mistakes. I can't stand it when someone just won't admit that they did something wrong and feels as though it's always someone else who is the problem. Story 13. It's always all about them. Do they realize we all have problems and go through things? But the world stops when they go through something, and all our effort has to focus on them. Story 14. A Trump supporter goes around swinging a false specimen cup and believes Europe is a country but still gets to vote. This situation constitutes a confounding, eldritch horror straight out of a Lovecraft book. Story 15. Someone who thinks everyone else is like them, and if someone is clearly different from them, having led a different life, they have a hard time believing that's possible, almost to the degree of refusing to believe it. Story 16. Pointlessly, and I do mean pointlessly, contrarian. We get it, bud. You're not like everyone else. However, ignoring the experts' evidence, common sense, common decency, logic, and the reality that's directly in front of you isn't sticking it to the man. You're just acting foolishly and immaturely, trying to compensate for being dull, insecure, and uninformed without an original thought in your head. Story 17. I cannot stand people who are always sarcastic or ironic or speak as if everything is a bit. I think it is to avoid coming off as cringe. Well, I love earnestness and sincerity and trying hard. It is what connection and fulfillment are based on. Everything else seems like a way to avoid pain. Story 18. Neighbor who is constantly starting disputes with other neighbors. We are all close together on this big city street. Life is stressful enough without her constantly creating strife where everyone should be able to relax. Story 19. I'm not a fan of people who are open with their sexuality and preferences, such as bisexual individuals who can be rather vulgar and overly expressive about it. I'm not criticizing them. It's just that I understand their point without the need for excessive demonstration. The same applies to those who are openly flamboyant gays, so expressive that it appears over the top and almost cartoonish. Again, I understand, but there's no need to make such loud declarations about it. Story 20. Right-wing religious people, even if they are nice, they are genuinely stupid and conversations with them are unbearably shallow. Also, many self-victimizing engineering types who condescend to everyone to release their pent-up baby rage. Story 21. Gay people who make being gay their entire personality. Like, dude, chill out. I'm gay too, but I don't need everyone within a 500-foot radius to know it. Maybe tell me something about yourself other than the fact you're gay. Perhaps what kind of car you drive, your favorite color, and which Ace Attorney game is your favorite. I don't think I'm asking for a lot here. Story 22. The type that is always looking for faults to call out in others. When they do call it out, it's in front of others, and they know their righteousness. This very often seems to be preemptive deflection. Story 23. The obsessive and compulsive selfish behavior. When people don't get a hint to leave each other alone and keep asking the same questions every day. Story 24. Abrasive, sarcastic people. The kind who are perpetually rude, tell cruel jokes, and justify it by saying, "That's just my vibe. Anyone who dislikes it is just too sensitive to handle me." It reeks of insecurity. You're not a badass, Kevin or Karen. You're an asshole. Story 25, the fake, as I like to call it, is the persona that many people imitate so they can get what they want from others, such as attention. An example of this would be pathological liars. Story 26. People that make everything a debate or competition. The situation or conversation may not even be that serious, but they make it serious so they can argue and always be right. Story 27. For me, narcissistic and manipulative behavior, as well as lying and the inability to keep promises, were far too common in my childhood from some key family members. Story 28. Borderline. An actual personality disorder. I guarantee we all know someone with it. It's, "I love you. Get away from me. I need this, but when I get it, it's still not right. Whatever you do will be wrong because I'm so unsettled in who I am." It goes hand in hand with many other diagnoses. The bottom line, as a practitioner, friend, loved one, is that it's absolutely exhausting and frustrating. Story 29. People pleasers. You never know when you are crossing their boundaries, and they will still resent you for it. Also, it is insincere, sometimes bordering on manipulative. Story 30. I see many people saying know-it-alls. This makes me a little confused. Do they mean people who don't accept when they are wrong even when faced with proof that they are wrong, or people who just have a broad range of knowledge and are able to explain different subjects? I can understand if it's the first one, but not if it's the second one. If you say something factually wrong and a know-it-all comes to tell you that you might be wrong, is that a bad thing? Would you prefer to continue to believe your own theory instead of the factually proven one? Story 31. People who choose apathy over empathy. Those who always talk about their achievements and are often referred to as self-promoters. Furthermore, individuals characterized by selfishness always put their needs before anyone or anything else. Story 32. Overly extroverted. Now, I don't mind extroverted people, but I have a friend who is overly extroverted. And sometimes when she does something embarrassing, she embarrasses me too. And it doesn't help that I'm an introvert and a socially anxious person. Story 33. Everything mentioned here involves drama and the victim type of person. The ones that always suffer, they have it worse than you, but they are not at fault. Story 34. The kind that likes to hold resentment and calculate what everyone else owes them. For example, a coworker offered you a ride. If you didn't ask for it, you would assume that the offer was made without any strings attached. That's a reasonable assumption because there was no price to be discussed, and you thought that your coworker is offering you a ride out of the goodness of their heart. You gladly accept it. You both get to the destination, you thank them. Case closed, right? Except it isn't. Now, months later, you learn from another coworker that coworker A is bad-mouthing you behind your back. The reason why is because you never offered them a ride when you accepted one from them way back then. When you confronted coworker A and pointed out that they never once requested a ride from you, and as far as you know, they never had a problem getting to where they need to be. If they needed a ride and asked, you would have gladly offered one if it was within your capability. Coworker A countered that you should have offered anyways because they offered you a ride, and you accepted, and you should have offered regardless. Sounds stupid, doesn't it? Because it is. They never asked for a ride or even said anything about needing a ride. They never said anything about you owing them a ride, favor, cash when they offered. In fact, they never said anything to you about anything. But somehow, you need to know that you owe them, and they'll keep bringing up to everyone about how you took advantage of them by not offering a ride when you accepted one from them. That's the kind of ridiculous favor calculations that I'm talking about. They did something nice for you, you assumed because they were being kind, because to everyone else it is, and now you owe them. Like some sort of parasitic social loan shark. I don't know if there's a specific term to refer to people like that. If there is, I would appreciate it if someone could let me know. Story 35. People who think they are always right or believe they are superior in everything, the type as who cannot allow anyone to do anything without it being not good enough, act like martyrs for taking on everything because nobody else is competent enough. Then, they expect everyone to be appreciative for all they do because no one helps. Story 36. Narcissists, I am not even going to pretend to entertain the thought of dealing with them. My mother is a social worker and she taught us from a young age how to quickly identify someone who is narcissistic so we could avoid them. There is no reasoning you can do with someone who is so full of themselves. I do not even want to try. Story 37. I wouldn't say I hate any type of personality, but I do find it challenging to connect with people who are consistently negative or dismissive of others. I believe in lifting each other up, and it's tough when someone is always bringing the energy down. Story 38. People can't just be grateful and happy with what they have. Instead, they use their successes to put other people down to make themselves feel superior. I ended a 10-year friendship due to this. Story 39. Not hate per se, but I usually avoid unauthentic people. You're never interacting with them, you're interacting with a facade of who they want to project. It's annoying for a short time and dreadful over a long time. They're bland, boring, too nice. Just be your true self. You're an interesting person deep inside. Show us your real self. Story 40. I don't hate any personality. The fact that so many people are so easily willing to hate instead of simply dislike says enough for me about the personalities of the Reddit users answering. Story 41. Uptight type as, it's hard to enjoy life around them, and I feel like they have to be half-heartedly miserable, worried about making everything perfect all the time. Story 42. Smug individual. The phrase, I know what I am doing annoys people, but I also know it isn't illegal or reportable, so I am going to keep doing it to secure a victory, describes these types. Story 43. The text provided has been corrected for spelling errors. Acronyms have been expanded, though none were present, punctuation adjusted, special characters and links removed to suit Azure Text to Speak AI. The stupid, on purpose kind. If you cannot do something because of a physical or mental disability, you are forgiven. But if it is just because you lack the motivation to learn, that's on you. Story 44. The one who has to be in the center of attention all the time. They often do this in a way that they make everyone else feel boring, just like some people can only seem smart if they make you feel stupid. Also, the ones who think being rude is a cool personality trait. Story 45. People who ask for advice and for you to listen to their problems, but then go and do the exact opposite of what you suggested. Once their problems worsen, they want to come back to you and get upset about your advice not working, as if you didn't take my advice from the start, so how could it possibly work? I've ghosted many people who were this way, much to their shock and frustration. I no longer wish to participate in the continual drama that is your life, my friend. Story 46. How would you classify a person who pushes for information by pretending they care about your health and well-being? I had someone at my job that I barely said hi to ask if I was okay. I said, I'm fine. And they kept asking as if I was a child and wouldn't back off. I just walked away. Story 47. That frat boy type who thinks he is the best thing going. The guy who probably peaked in high school because he was the football favorite. Then in college, everyone adored him and overinflated his ego. Now he is the manager who is always using corporate catchphrases because he wants the bosses to notice him, and they do. He gets the best car, the beautiful trophy wife, the big house, all the promotions and bonuses at work. Story 48. Do you all like your words being monitored by the nerdy hall monitor? The captain of the kickball team? What do we even have a constitution for? Where do we live? Story 49. Know-it-alls and hypocrites. My mom is both, and after years of listening to her nonsense, I get irritated at everything she says, even if it's as simple as come here, like just stop talking. I don't know if you're going to conveniently forget all this crazy nonsense you're telling me or straight up lie about it.